a little debate going on our WhatsApp group about the lack of Muslims in the meeting. But the thing is, they're not there. We tried to invite them, but they didn't respond. So we just have to make do with the responses we've had. Oh, I see we are live. Let me turn on my light. Yeah. Welcome, YouTube, to another discussion of the Atheists Hangout by Skeptics and Atheist Society of Kenya. Today, we are calling the topic Rebutting Rebuttals, Atheist Responses to Muslim Excuses. I know it's a bit harsh and antagonistic, but we need to get your views. It's a bit clickbaity. We are not going to engage dishonestly, right? It's not about winning. It's not about destroying, the opponents or anything like that. No, it is simply about examining a common belief system here in Kenya. When it comes to religions in Kenya, 80% of us, of Kenyan nationals, are Christians. Then about 15% are Muslims. And then the rest are split between Hindus, Buddhists, and African traditionalists, and those New Age spiritualists. And then us, atheists, are in there somewhere. So, as you can see, 15% is a significant number. And most of us have been asked, when you go and tell someone, I'm an atheist, they're like, atheism, why go so extreme? Okay, I see the problems with Christianity. Have you considered Islam? They ask. Have you considered Islam? So, this is an attempt to examine whether Islam is worthwhile. Okay. And of course, the way we have structured the discussion, there are 5 points that we are going to address, 5 rebuttals that we are going to address. All of these rebuttals are focusing on some problematic areas in Islam. Somebody can say, oh, you atheists, you're so negative. What is your problem? Why are you concentrating on only the bad stuff? Because it's the bad stuff that makes us non-believers, that makes people non-believers. The reason why most of us left Christianity is because of the bad stuff in it, the controversial stuff. Yeah, but there are many wonderful things about Islam. There are many positive impacts that it has had on Muslims' lives. That one we cannot deny, on Muslims and even the people around them. But when it comes to discourse, you go to the controversial aspect. That's what tries to bring out the veracity of an idea. Now, what are these 5 points? What are the rebuttals that we hear from Muslims? As I said previously, I have interacted with some Muslims. There's a lady in my group, the one I call Sparkling Girls, who's Muslim. And I remember we had a disagreement. Let me not say disagreement, but some sort of debate with her on Islam. on Islam. And she gave me responses. I brought to her my objections regarding Islam, and she gave me her responses. So I would call those rebuttals. What is a rebuttal? A rebuttal is a response to a point made by an opponent in a debate. So of course, it was not a formal debate, but it was a debate nonetheless. So she gave me some rebuttals, and those actually form the crux of these rebuttals. That lady is the one who gave me some of these. But granted, she's a very liberal Muslim. In fact, she's married to a believer. So maybe even her interpretation or her rebuttal might not be as accurate as the one by Muslim apologists. Also, when preparing these points, I, not just today, throughout, I listened to a lot of debates between Muslims and atheists. I love those discourses. I think they are very engaging. Any debate about belief, about religious belief, to me is very interesting. So I've listened to debates between Muslims and Christians, Muslims and atheists, or Muslims and some other version, right? And I hear how they excuse some of the problematic issues in Islam. Those also informed where these rebuttals are coming from. So as we address them, we'll be dealing with one rebuttal, and then we mention what was the issue, what was the problem in Islam that was being addressed. Then what is the rebuttal that was given by the Muslim believer or the Muslim apologist? And now, how would we respond to that? Do we think it's convincing? Yeah, because it could be convincing. The rebuttal might be convincing. If it's a good argument, it's a good argument, regardless of what your position is on Islam. So that's what we'll do. And the 5 are as follows. 1, Arabic translation error for unscientific or immoral ideas. Number 2, culture. They can excuse child marriage or slavery based on culture. They say that's a culture. Number 3, fundamentalists. Those are fundamentalists. That's another excuse they give when we talk about terrorism or violence in the name of Islam. So they say those are just fundamentalists or fanatics. They are not me. Me, I'm a peaceful Muslim. So that's another rebuttal we hear. Number 4, it's the natural order of things. That's a rebuttal we hear when we object to how Islam treats women. There are very many problematic ideas regarding women, which we will mention as we respond to that rebuttal of it's the natural order. Women are just subservient to men. It's just natural for women to be below men. It's the natural order. That's another excuse we hear. And finally, that's Islamophobia. When you say those things, bad things, if you criticize Islam, or you speak negatively about Prophet Muhammad, they call that blasphemy or apostasy. When somebody leaves the faith and they speak against some bad ideas in Islam, they call that Islamophobia. So that's a rebuttal they give. What do we think about that? Those are the 5 we'll be addressing. So without wasting more time, let's get into the first one, which is Arabic translation errors. When do we hear this? We hear this when we bring out unscientific ideas from the Quran. Unscientific or immoral. Let's leave immoral for number 2. Let's talk about first this unscientific things in the Quran. And what are these? One unscientific idea. There are many. The Quran is laden with many mistakes regarding how nature works. It's just like the Bible, but maybe even worse. So there's this one, Quran 1886, which propagates the idea that the sun sets in muddy water. So it says, Quran 1886, till when he reached the setting place of the sun, he found it setting in a muddy pool or a muddy spring of water. So according to the Quran, the sun sets in a muddy pool of water. That's why it becomes dark. And then there's another one, Quran 50:38, which says that, just like the Bible, that heaven and earth were created in 6 days. Another one, Quran 81:2, says that the stars will fall on earth. Same thing with the Bible. They're very similar, these holy texts. Quran 81:2 says, and when stars fall on earth in the last day. This was Muhammad talking about the end days, that stars will fall on the earth. That is unscientific. As we said last time, stars are way bigger than the planets. And lastly, there are many more, but for the sake of time, I'll end here. They believe that semen comes from the backbone, from a drop emitted in the backbone and ribs. This is Quran 86, 5-7. So when we bring out these ideas, we tell them these are unscientific and they're wrong. They say that one of the rebuttals they give is that you are reading the Quran from a translation and you're not supposed to, because the Quran was written in Arabic. That's one rebuttal. Another rebuttal could be it's a metaphor. We've had that one before, but okay. So what do we think about that rebuttal or any other rebuttal you might have heard of regarding unscientific things in the Quran, like those verses I have read? What do you think about that rebuttal? Do you think it is convincing? Please feel free to raise your hands. Look for that icon on your screens and raise your hands, please.
About what? I was not available.
Oh, we are doing the first one of Arabic translation errors when we point out unscientific things, mistakes in the Quran. They talk about translation error. Tano, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. What I can just say is they just try to give the excuse, and of course, in every word, you can be able to twist a word to mean something different. For example, by saying the sun go to the man, they can say it's a translation error by saying they mean the sun disappear, and it seems as if it's entering into the mind. They can just try to say it was just a illustration how the sun appear to be moving toward the mind when it's disappearing. So they can try to twist those words, or maybe they are trying to twist those things, but like the Muslim I was debating with or having a conversation with, whenever I mention any verse that is contradict his belief, he normally say, does not say that. And he could learn to the Quran and read it to me in Arabic. I asked him, what does that mean? He read again in the Arabic and he say it means like that. So he does not want to interpret in English or in Kiswahili. So he say, you should know Arabic for you to know what Quran say. Don't read in English or in other language. That was how he could be able to excuse the thing that he was not ready to argue about. Yeah, thank you.
Aha. That is Stano's perspective. His friend was behaving that way. Any other person in response to that rebuttal? Do you think that you cannot understand information if it has been translated? Do you think things are lost in translation? Don't be shy, members. Don't be shy. Great. I see Ndeve's hand is up. Go ahead, Ndeve.
Oh, then there is a problem with all the books of religion, because if it can't be translated, then it can only be understood by few people, or rather it was meant for just those few people that can understand that original language, and maybe that would be a good thing, because if as soon as we translate, you start telling us that we don't understand that because it has to be in the original language, then just keep it to yourself and leave us alone without that particular kind of religion. I mean, I'm just saying that in derision. I'm kind of, not unhappy with the whole situation. And since it is the year that it is, 2025, and the fact is, many people are interested, not for conversion's sake, but to understand why people do the things that they do to us. I want to understand why somebody is going to come to me and just say a few words and, maybe find the crowd or do whatever they want to do. I want to understand what would make that person do that, and is there something I can do about it? So that is why I wanted the correct translation. And if somebody tells me that they went to the West until they reached this pool and they were sitting there with somebody else and they saw the muddy pool and the sun getting into that pool, there is nothing very complicated about that. The sun was just going down in a pool, and that's where it disappeared. When they didn't see it, it's because it was inside a pool. Now, if that is the author of the book, we're not going to argue with him. That's what he saw, and that's what he's writing about. And that is where the sun goes. It goes into a pool. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree to that. So it is wrong. It's a mistake, and there's no getting out of it. It's not right. It's the same as splitting the moon into two. It's a mistake. The moon has never been split into two, not yet. And so that's it for me. It's a mistake. They can own to it and call it a metaphor or call it wrong and remove it or edit it, or we will continue questioning it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ndebe. Yes, that is indeed an indication that it is a mistake. Any other person on that rebuttal of translations? Because it comes out a lot when you engage with Muslims. They're like, you don't speak Arabic, classic Arabic. Any other person who has a take on translation errors as a rebuttal? Okay, I see no other hands. Then let me give my perspective before we proceed to the second one. To me, if people tell you that you have to learn a language in order to understand the information in it, then it means that we can't learn anything else without first understanding the language in which it was initially written. I like this example. It was given by our very own Stano when we were talking about whether Islam is a religion of peace. And he said, when the fridge was invented, it was probably invented by a non-English speaker. But because of translation, we were able to understand how that technology works, and we were able to replicate the technology. There are many other things out there which have been initiated, have been created by non-English speakers or by people who don't speak your language. Translation is necessary, it is inevitable. That's how information gets passed down to other people. And even for the Muslims themselves, you find that they recite the Quran in Arabic, but a good proportion of them, about 80%, do not even speak Arabic itself. They just recite the verses. Even then, they don't understand. So if you cannot trust a negative statement from the Quran, an unflattering statement from the Quran because of translation errors, then we can also not trust positive statements that paint Allah or Muhammad in a positive light. We have to apply it equally. And to me, it is a commentary on the weakness of their belief, because an all-knowing, powerful God like Allah should have communicated in a way that is universal to all. Why does he have to rely on a revelation that was given to Muhammad in Mecca? And he's not even the one who wrote the Quran. It's other people who transcribed the message. So it's such a long process that this Allah was using in order to get his communication across. That shows you that he is limited. Allah is limited in terms of his communication abilities. If he relied on a book, why can't he just show up? Or why couldn't he use videos? Why couldn't he wait for the time when videos have been invented to use it? Is far better than the translation, the things that are written down that need translation. So that's what I would say. And it's not a satisfactory rebuttal in my book. Next is culture. The next rebuttal is culture. And this one, we often hear it when we bring out problematic ideas like child marriage and slavery, because the Quran endorses slavery and it also endorses child marriage, among many other immoral things, unjust things. But let me read the verse on child marriage. Quran 65:4 says, people were asking Muhammad how long they should wait before having sex after divorce, okay, with their wives. Men were asking, obviously it's men, he's always talking to men. So Quran 65:4 says that the waiting period after divorce, the waiting period of those of your women who have lost menstruation is 3 months. You wait for 3 months before having sex with a woman who has lost her menstruation, a woman who has undergone menopause. And the same should apply, those 3 months, you wait for 3 months, to those who have not yet menstruated. To those who have not yet menstruated. So that verse insinuates that this is a woman who is married, and this is a girl. She's not a woman yet. This is a girl. If she has not yet had her menses, she's immature. And apart from that, we also look at the life of Muhammad, who married Aisha, who was 6 years, and then he consummated the marriage at 9 years of age. 9 years of age. And child marriage is condoned in many Islamic settings. So how do they respond to it? They say that was the culture back then. Even slavery is endorsed. There's this verse which talks about, where is it? Quran 23:5. You can have intercourse with your wife and the one your right hand possesses. All the scholars, or the Muslim scholars, translate that the one your right hand possesses to mean your slave. So slavery is allowed, and so is child marriage. So they respond by saying that is the culture. That was the culture back there. So how would we rebut that rebuttal? Or what do you think about that response of culture? That was the culture back then. Yes, El Maestro, go ahead.
Of course, that's on that matter about slavery. I'll always respond the way I respond to Christian. In the I think even in the Islamic perspective, they also attribute their God to be an all-loving, all-merciful God. Isn't that the same way they attribute their God Allah to be all
Yes,
merciful,
yes.
all loving? So an all merciful God or an all loving God will never permit something that is to do with slavery, and that would mean that he's not all loving and all merciful after all, which then puts their God in that God in questionable, which brings some questions about their God and the attributes they give their God. So it's the same way you respond to Christians in that matter of slavery and culture. Even about culture, it's the same thing. An all-loving God will never permit a culture that is retrogressive to his people, especially those who are slaves or those who are believe in that same believe in Allah but are suffering because of the culture that is there that time.
And El Maestro, if they say
yeah
slavery was so rampant back then that Allah couldn't just eradicate it immediately.
Then the Allah is not all powerful. An all powerful God should be able to eradicate something in less than a second.
Thank you, El Maestro. Next is Papsi. Karibu. Hey, Papsi. It's been a minute. Where have you been hiding? Yes, go ahead.
Hello, guys. It's been long, but I'm back. I hope you guys are doing well. Yeah? Mnanisikia kweli?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. Mimi niko poa. Anyways, with regards to that point, I think one of the ways of rebutting, if that's a word, Islamic counters on the same is by saying that this whole thing makes sense if you view it from a humanistic or rather naturalistic perspective. And how so? If you say that morality, just like any other societal thing or humanistic thing, it morphs. So back then, when we had people, let's just say the Islams marrying pre-teenage kids and engaging in slavery, you can say that, well, we are animals, and just like any other animals, we had our own bushy behavior. I don't know, bushy, what's the better word? I think jungle behavior, right? So if you argue that from a naturalistic perspective, these characteristics of us, or these cultures were evolving as we advance as society or as civilization, then in that way it makes sense, because if you argue that now Allah is real and Islam is the real deal, then you have to answer for a lot of questions. But you see, when you view it from a naturalistic framework, it makes a little bit of sense, because, of course, Islam wasn't the only culture that was doing these things. We had Christians doing the same. We had even the African cultures. We had a myriad of other cultures that were doing this sort of things. And to better explain this behavior, this culture, is by going via the naturalistic route, of which we say we are animals, and as animals, we went step by step advancing as a civilization to where we are at the moment. But now, if you argue that Allah was in control of the universe and the world and what have you, you'll have a lot of, from my perspective, you'll have a lot of questions to answer, which kind of negates the validity of the religion itself, if that makes sense. I'm done.
Okay, I like that, but I'm already anticipating what a Muslim apologist would say. In fact, I had this directly from Mohammed Hijab. He's one of the prolific Muslim apologists.
Yes.
And this is what he said in a debate with Alex O'Connor. In fact, in that debate, I felt like Mohammed Hijab carried the day. He attacked Alex O'Connor's. I trust you know Alex O'Connor.
Of course I do.
Yes. He was
He's one of my favorite YouTubers, by the way. I'd say he should be the fourth horseman, considering the other one died. I mean, the fourth.
The other died. Two, actually, two of them died. Hitchens and Dennis Bennett. Yeah.
Damn. I think Alex should be one of the.
Kabisa. So in that debate, Mohammed Hijab attacked Alex when Alex tried to bring out that aspect, some immoral things in Islam. Mohammed Hijab said, but you believe that morality is not objective. So where do you get the authority to criticize any of our morality in Islam if you don't believe in objective morality? So how would you respond?
I would say the very fact that I believe that morality is relative, I would say gives me the leeway to kind of counter any sort of objective-oriented morality claim that Islam does, because although this would be a bit of a fallacy, I'm not sure, but can they really argue that successfully that morality is objective, so that my point or my rebuttal would be invalid? Does that make sense?
I don't know what Muslims believe. I don't know whether they believe. I think they believe in an objective morality.
They do.
Yeah, that it is given to them, the divine command theory, that it is given to them by Allah, so it is immutable. Anything that Allah ordains is objective. It goes. Okay. That's how you would respond.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Sawa.
the thing is, I'm a skeptic, and therefore I'm not. I shouldn't. Okay, I'm not obligated to go or to reason in the same mindset that they do, because first thing first, I'm a skeptic in that regard. So that means I have another mindset or another approach to their perspective. So I don't really have to, or I'm not obligated to reason from the same tree of logic that they do, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you, Papsi. Any other person on that rebuttal of culture when you point out slavery or child marriage? That is the response they give. Any other person who has an input there on culture? Yes, Stano, go ahead.
I think that is a common thing to religion. When they find something there is weak point, just the way even Christianity they excuse about slavery by saying it was by then. The same case, although the last hangout I had conversation with a Muslim and he claimed there is no child marriage as long as that girl is having a period. It means it's a mature. Ara put that girl or that woman in a certain way because it's ready to become a mother. So they don't advocate for child marriage, but if a girl reach that maturity or that menstrual period, that is qualified to become an adult. That is what. So he was advocating for to marry a girl who have reached that stage, and the claim is no longer a child. And if it's a child, Allah could not put that in that situation. So that is what I heard from him. But the other may claim it was by then. Other may defend by saying it was a translation error.
Stano, on that one, what
Yeah.
did you respond when he told you as long as they have started their menses? You know, there are girls who start at 8 years, at 7 years, they've started their menses.
I
So
tried to argue. I tried to argue by saying for that girl, it will be very painful, or it will be like a hell for that girl to have a baby, and also to bring up the baby because it's still a child or is still under the care of her parent. It's like a kid bringing up a kid.
And what about the you were mentioning some other responses?
So the other are trying to defend by saying Muhammad never married a 9 years old, or which is 6 and then wait for 9 years, by claiming Quran does not say that. And I think they are right on that. So if they try to argue based on Quran, you cannot be able to fight against them, because they may claim other books are not more important than Quran. So they believe in Quran, or they believe in Quran, which does not say Muhammad married a girl who was 9 years old. So that is how they try to excuse other by saying it's a translation error. It never happened. So it depends which group you are debating with. There are a group that can defend by saying it was not wrong, and the other group we don't defend by saying it never happened, and the claim is immoral. Thank you.
So when they give those excuses, any of them, are they convincing to you? Does that testify to the morality of Islam or to the truthfulness of Islam?
It proved that they lack the coherent definition or coherent type of kind of the morality, because the morality is contradicting that you cannot be able to depend. So they cannot convince, or even sometime I just laugh when I'm hearing them talking like that. I like want to say.
Okay, great. Thank you, ex-Pastor Stano. Any other person? I don't want to lock you out before I give my take.
Dorcas.
Okay.
Dorcas.
Oh, David, you want to contribute?
There is, I don't know if it's a contradiction, because there is something that you read, and I think you are reading from the Quran, that a divorced man has to wait 3 menstrual, well, which is 3 months, to have relations with with a menopausal woman, or equally 3 months before he can have relations with a woman who has never had menstrual cycles. Was that directly from the Quran?
Yes, it was Quran 65:4. That particular statement says, the same shall apply to those who have not yet menstruated. And then I added that most scholars who explain it, they call it the what do they call it? I'm forgetting the name, but there's something that scholars do to explain verses from the Quran. So most scholars say that that statement means that it is a child.
But it is a child. If it hasn't had menstrual cycles, it is a child. So if this man is going to have relations with this person that has never had menstrual cycles, how is he justifying that? How is that being justified? That could be a 7-year-old that is not going to have menstrual cycles until maybe they are 10 or 11. And for how many years is that they've been doing the wrong thing according to the Quran? So I don't really see any wiggle room out of, I don't see any room of getting out of that. And even if that person is having menstrual cycles and they are 9, or even if they start at 11, they are having menstrual cycles and they are 14, 11, that person can't really, that body can't really carry a baby. That's a child. They can't really carry a baby to term safely without endangering both the child and the mother. And even people who have not studied anatomy, the societies, call them whatever kind of societies, primitive society, have known that. So I still insist that even if people say that it was those days, even in those days, in generally in other societies, maybe that the Quranic society is a special society. Societies had known what a child is. So when it comes to carrying a child, so yeah, I just wanted to hear that again, because I thought I thought I had heard it right, and yes, that was the context. Yes, it's the context of a child. Thank you. Okay, what has happened to your sound?
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Or am I
Yes,
muted?
yes, you are okay.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Yes, how would I respond to this rebuttal that it was their culture? But other rebuttals, as ex-Pastor Stano said, include mistranslation. You know, somebody can play around with that verse from the Quran. In fact, I've been very careful to read only verses from the Quran, not from hadiths, because they are Quran only Muslims. They say that the hadiths cannot be verified. For those who are not aware, hadiths are sayings of Prophet Muhammad. And then the Sunnah are his deeds. And then the Quran is the revelation from God, the one that he got when he got that attack in Medina. So there's some Muslims who are like, if it's from the Hadith, I don't support it. So I've been very careful when I bring out a problematic issue with Islam. I only quote the Quran so that I cover all the Muslims. Yes. So what is what would be my rebuttal to the rebuttal? I would say, number one, on this issue of culture and how it shows how backward the people of the Quran were. Sorry to use such a strong word. It was backward. You see, the nature of humanity is that our morality evolves. As we learn more, as we become more knowledgeable, we improve our morality. If your morality is tied to people who lived during a Bronze Age or during the time of military conquest like Muhammad, then your morality will be tied to that time. But now we know better, because at that time, child marriage was okay, slavery was okay, nobody thought to question it. But as per now, our morality has evolved and we know better. We know that child marriage is harmful to people. And I keep saying that the basis of my morality as a secular humanist is well-being. If something harms our well-being as humans, then it is an immoral act. And child marriage is one such thing. As David said, it has a lot of physical and biological harms. The person could get fistula, they could die during childbirth. One of the greatest risks to dying during childbirth is being underage, barely being pubescent. So they could die while giving birth. They would be psychologically affected by the marriage. There would be this power imbalance between them, and their financial well-being, their education, and essentially their life trajectory will be tarnished. It will be changed for the worse when they are married as children. It's definitely a harmful and terrible practice. But because it was permitted back in the day, Muslims today are caught between a rock and a hard place, and they are required to defend such an abhorrent act. That to me is actually a testimony of how the Quran is not a timeless document. You know, they like to say that. They like to say that their holy text was the last revelation from God, and it will stand the test of time. It does not stand the test of time if a decent Muslim, and most Muslims are decent, a decent Muslim is having to defend something like child marriage. That shows you that indeed they are better than their Prophet Muhammad or than the God that they follow if they don't adhere to those practices. And on this one, the question I asked Papsi, what if they say, you believe that morality is not objective, so how can you point out the problems with Islamic morality? Yes, I do concede that morality is not objective, but we have universal moral values. And one of them is not marrying or having sex with children, pedophilia. Yeah, that is something that we have agreed as a species that it is not good for us. And another one is also slavery. We have also realized that this is a problem. So there are universal moral values, and those are the ones that we are using to call out such practices in the Quran. But they should really question the omnibenevolence of their God in that respect. And culture is not a satisfactory answer. So let's proceed. We're moving on swiftly to the third one, which is fundamentalists. Those are fundamentalists. When we bring out the idea of violence and terrorism sponsored by Muslim adherents, they tell us that those are just religious extremists. They are fundamentalists. Me, I'm a peaceful Muslim. So what do we think about that response? And how would you rebut the rebuttal when they tell you that those are just fundamentalists? They're not all Muslims. In fact, most Muslims are peaceful. They're not violent. Yes, Stano, go ahead.
For me, I will just say, as long as there is a loophole in the Quran that advocate for violence, for example, those verses say, go and kill those who are not Muslim, unless they believe in Islamic. So if they believe and they give, I don't know whether it's tactics, you can leave them alone. But if they don't, just fight them. Otherwise, say just kill them. So as long as there is a loophole of that verse, we cannot say those are extremists as long as they are using the same Quran. Unless they tell that verse is wrong, it's not supposed to be in Quran, or was wrongly misrepresented there. So for me, I will just say, yes, you may be peaceful, but your Quran, there is a loophole that say you can kill me. You can fight the other who are not believing the same belief you have. So as long as there is that loophole, there is no excuse. So I can just say you are good because you don't follow the Quran in full. That is why you are peaceful. But those who are not peaceful is because they focus more to those verses that say you can fight the other, or try to force them to pay taxes. Yeah, thank you. I think it also for Christianity, it's only that they can be able to twist by saying that was the Old Testament. New Testament does not advocate for violence. It's only the Old that advocate for violence. For Christian, somehow we can understand literal, although it's not genuine answer still. But for Christian, I think they can have that excuse. But for Muslim, I don't think their excuse is not ending up. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Stano. Next is El Maestro.
Yeah, Stano actually has said part of what I wanted to say, but I can also add. They say that at those I don't know that are extremists, me, I'm peaceful. I can say you are peaceful because that's how you are raised. There's a conscience inside you that that is the reason why you are peaceful with everyone else. You don't need to be a Muslim. Do you need to be a Muslim to be peaceful? No, you don't. But then your Quran, the Quran says categorically, tells you. Actually, there's someone who sent. It's not only one or two verses. Actually, about 5 verses in the Quran. Not more than 5 verses in the Quran that advocate for violence against non-Muslims. There are more than 5. There's someone who sent them. I still have those verses in my gallery. He sent some screenshots of like 5 to 8 verses that advocate for violence in the Quran. But since those who claim they are peaceful, you can just say that they're cherry picking. They first decide to be peaceful, then they go to the Quran and cherry pick the verses that will satisfy that say that they should live peacefully with one another, then and they ignore the rest of the other verses. So that makes because actually those extremists are the ones who are actually true to what the Quran says, because they are doing whatever the Quran has told them to do. But the other who claim they are peaceful, they are just cherry picking the verses, because first of all they decide they'll be peaceful because that's how they were raised by their parents. Then they cherry pick the verses in Quran that are somehow that appeal to their peacefulness, and they ignore the rest.
All right. Thank you, El Maestro. They have to go outside the Quran in order to be peaceful. But if they stay within the confines of the Quran, then they will be violent. Aha. What about you, Papsi? What do you think about that rebuttal, which is that those are just extremists, they are fundamentalists, they are not representative of most Muslims like me? Maybe that person is a Muslim and they're like me, I'm peaceful, my family is peaceful, but those are fundamentalists.
Okay, so mine isn't so much of a rebuttal, but more of observations. So I would say it's become an opinion heavy, but I think first for all the religions that have sort of interacted with, I think Islam has to be the most extreme and so strict in that regard. So in countries that it's strictly Muslim, or they don't allow any other religion, I think they tend to appear more extreme in that sense, compared to the Muslims that come from countries such as Kenya, where there is freedom of worship, where they can interact with other people. So I've even debated with some from here, Kenya, and some from those countries that only do Muslim, and you can see from the choice of words, you can see that those ones from those countries tend to be a bit harsh, extreme. So I would say the book itself, minus the cultural dependencies and all that stuff, Quran itself, nimesoma Quran instead of Quran. Nice. Anyway, the book itself has elements of extremism. Yeah. So depending on where you are or where you're born, is how now you will also who you're born with. Is how is how extreme. I mean, it's relative to how extreme you'll be now when you start to grow a bit older and interact with other people, other religions. Yeah. Sina mengi.
Okay. So according to Papsi, influences from other more peaceful religions or cultures tend to lead to that outcome. They tend to prevent that religious extremism or at least reduce it. Great, thank you, Papsi. I see Deve's hand is up. Go ahead, Deve.
Thanks, Dorcas. So, the Muslims who live with us, non-believers, peacefully, are the ones who are disobeying the Quran. Because this, let's read it. And I have obviously have to read it in English because my Arabic is not very good. My classic Arabic is not very good. I only know Hayawani. Okay. Surah the Surah 3, verse 151. We shall cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. That's all non-Muslims. Surah 2, verse 191. And kill them wherever you find them. Kill them, which is the recompense of the disbelievers. Surah 9, verse 5. Then kill the disbelievers wherever you find them. Capture them and besiege them, and lie in wait for them each and every ambush. That is the Quran. Those are not hadiths or any. That is just the Quran that I read. So you tell me, who is obeying the Quran? Your peaceful neighbor or the neighbor that is obeying those commands? It's your peaceful neighbor that is not following their book. The same thing with the Bible. The Bible has got the same kind of commands, but they've just ignored it and they live peacefully with us. So, yeah, they just are not obeying it when they're peaceful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deve. What about maybe Deve can also can answer this since the mic is still warm on your end. What about when they say that the Quran forbids you from killing fellow believers? It says you kill non-believers. So if a terrorist engages in a terrorist act and they kill non-believers, then that is not a real Muslim. That's not Islam. That's just them because they've not followed the Quran. How would you respond?
But if you are fair game, if you are non-believer, you are fair game, whether you are a child, a woman, or whatever, so long as you are a non-believer. Let's say you are in a Catholic church and you're praying, you are a non-believer already. So you are fair game. Or you are somewhere in Paris, somewhere in Notre Dame, Paris, you are fair game. Because you are a non-believer. Now, I do not know how they justify when they they do harm to their own believers. Actually, I do not know how. I would probably have to search that with the AI and see how that one is justified, or which verses say that you can kill believers. But I know non-believers, it is a free for all. If you're a non-believer, you are fair game. In fact, they can ambush you with their own child, because they put children in hospitals in Tel Aviv, or in Israel. They put, or sorry, not children. Yeah, they put children in harm's way to ambush non-believers. They will put maybe put soldiers in say in a hospital where they know they are endangering their own children, or they will go when they are going for a non-believer, they'll bring down their own believers. It's a command. I mean, it is somebody's obeying the Quran. It is even Christians refuse to obey the Bible. Otherwise, they would be behaving the same way. But Christians are not going to obey those verses. They've decided not to obey the verses that say that. I don't know if I've answered the question.
Yes, I think you have. Because it shows that a life is being taken, whether they are believers or non-believers, it's being taken. And I think that would be just collateral damage. But this is a point, our Morioki, it's unfortunate he's not in the meeting. He used to like bringing it up when he mentions the kind of weapons that they use, that is suicide bombing is not jihad, because jihad was supposed to be only targeting non-believers. So with a suicide bomb, you can't tell who is a believer or non-believer. And I was trying to convince Morioki that really that is inconsequential. I think that's collateral damage to the mind of the terrorist. The main agenda is to exterminate the non-believers. But David, you were asking about whether the Quran sanctions the killing of believers. Yes, in some contexts. For instance, if you are an adulterer, you are to be stoned to death. If you're a homosexual, you are to be stoned to death. And of course, if you are an apostate, you're to be stoned to death. So there are many conditions. There are many unfair laws in the Sharia, by extension, the Quran. So yeah, even the believers themselves are not safe. As long as you do things that are haram, you're just not safe. Like the woman in Iran who was stoned to death because of not wearing the hijab properly. So, how would I respond to this rebuttal that it's just the fundamentalists? I would tell them exactly what you guys have said, that you judge the peacefulness of a religion by its most faithful adherents. And the most faithful adherents are the fundamentalists. If you are following your holy text word for word and it causes you to become violent, then that is a bad religion. I wouldn't follow it. But if you are following your text to the letter and it causes you to be very peaceful, like the Jainists, for those of you who are a bit familiar with Eastern religions, there's Jainism. It's the most peaceful religion. The more faithful you are to your holy text as a Jainist, the more peaceful you are. You're not supposed to even kill an ant. Yeah. So this, to me, is a testament to the violent underpinnings of Islam. And moderate Muslims liberal Muslims are what I like to call the grass that hides the snake. And the snake are the fundamentalists. Many of these moderate Muslims support jihad. There was a poll that was done in the UK, I think that was in 2021 or 2022, that asked Muslims in the UK whether they support jihad, the interpretation of the military one, because some people will tell you jihad can mean an internal struggle. That's also another interpretation. But they were being asked in the poll about militant jihadism, and close to 70% of the respondents said they support it. So moderate Muslims are providing a cover for these fundamentalists. At the heart of their faith is the Quran, and the Quran endorses violence. They cannot run away from it. And in fact, they are the ones who are suffering. Muslims themselves are suffering because society tends to paint all Muslims in a broad brush, which I'm against. We should never call all Muslims terrorists. Not all Muslims are terrorists. Granted, maybe even 90% of Muslims are peaceful. But we cannot overlook the fact that Muslims are overrepresented when it comes to religious violence or religious extremism, and that is present in their book. It is practiced. And given the fact that the effect is so profound, fundamentalism, terrorism has such a massive effect, then we cannot pretend that this doesn't exist in their faith. It should be something that they challenge, and it should be something discarded. Like, why should you hinge yourself to a book which causes people to destroy the lives of others, to take away the lives of others at such a large scale? It dehumanizes other individuals. That, to me, is a sign that Islam is really an immoral religion. And no amount of sugarcoating or causing us red herrings, causing us to look at the other verses, because they like to bring up all the many verses of peace. Oh, Islam is a religion of peace. Muhammad said this, Muhammad said that. No. We cannot disregard those violent verses, which are adhered to by the most faithful adherents. And in fact, the less religious you become, the more tolerant or the more peaceful you become. So this actually shows you that we need to do away with faith, especially Islam in this respect, if we want to have a more peaceful world. Right, let's go to the fourth one. The fourth one is, it is the natural order. It is the natural order. When we bring out female oppression in the Quran or in Islam in general, we hear this rebuttal. They say that, that's how things are. Women are just naturally inferior to men. They're weaker. They're the weaker sex. So it's okay. It's okay for them to be oppressed. How would we respond to that? And maybe even somebody can highlight some of those instances of female oppression, just so that I don't have a monologue. What practices in Islam show you that it is biased, it discriminates against women? And are you satisfied with that answer? Of it's a natural order. That's how nature works. Women are just weaker than men. They deserve to be discriminated on. They don't call it discrimination, but yeah. Great. I see Stano's hand is up. Go ahead, Stano.
First, I will start with what even the other culture believes. is by thinking that you can have many wives or many women, but a woman cannot have many husbands. That is one of the discrimination that I can think about, but that is a common to almost every area. So what I can say about unique in Islamic is where they have a verse in Quran that say you can beat your wife if in do this and this, or if in deny you marital sets or conjugal right, you can just beat him, and among others. So they take the women as a property, so they can mistreat the wife the way they want, and they think that is the right from their God era. Yeah. And the other thing is the freedom. The women there have no freedom. You are not supposed to show your beauty. You are not supposed to be smart. You just wear, it's called the hijab. You just wear it to cover yourself, nobody, so that the people may not admire you. But for men, they have freedom to do whatever they want, to move where they want. But women are just like a cow. They have no freedom at all. Yeah, that is discrimination. There should be like, if there is not, they should remove those discrimination. We see women enjoying their right the same as men, but not just one gender. So that is so discrimination and also torturing women. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Stano. Yeah, for showing us those examples. Any other person on that rebuttal? They say it's the natural order of things. That's women are just inferior to men. Yes, El Maestro.
Okay, are you talking about first the examples or the rebuttal?
Both.
Oh,
Give us some other examples, and also how would you respond to that rebuttal of saying
okay.
that it's natural for women to be weak?
The examples, and it is so unimaginable, or like it's so painful. The kind of life the women in Taliban and in Afghanistan in general are living. I don't think I don't think they treat those women like they are human beings. Hey, I don't know the way the women are supposed to cover each part of their body except their eyes, or I don't know. The women are not supposed to talk to each other in public. That's the law that Afghanistan, I mean Taliban rule said, and also they denied them education, and all of this that they're quoting, or they are being inspired by the Quran. And they also said, Ati, a woman cannot be treated by a male doctor. So it's just, I don't understand how they expect women to be treated now when they are sick. Anyway, okay, this thing, remember when last year, after the election, when Trump defeated Kamala Harris, there's a certain woman, Muslim woman, she has a huge following on TikTok. I don't know. She posted a video saying that from the get go she knew that Kamala Harris would lose to Donald Trump, because I don't know, women are more emotional and affectionate, and men are more intelligent and less affectionate. I was like, hey, what's what is this girl saying? And I posted this thing on also my WhatsApp status, and I have a friend of mine who is a teacher and is a Muslim. He actually teaches here in Garrison Secondary School. He said the same things. Yeah. Muslims, no, Muslims are not. I mean, women are not leaders. Women. I was like, that's why I don't know. He was just being so misogynistic, but I just to avoid a lot of stories, a lot of engagement, or a lot of arguments. I just said okay, but I just asked him I asked him one thing. What do you can you compare the nations that are led by women, some of the nations that are led by women, compared to those are the main nations that are led by men? Compare, I don't know, it is Italy. There's some nations in Europe and in Europe or South America. There's Italy, and I gave him some 5 examples of nations that are led by women, that women are the prime minister or the president, and then compare it to here in Kenya here or in East Africa. In East Africa, then unfortunately, he gave me only one country that is also led by a woman that they protested until that woman ran away. I think it's a country in Asia. Is it Pakistan, or they made a woman the prime minister? I think it is Pakistan. He gave me an example of Pakistan, but then I told him that's just one out of 6. But then again, he told me yes, but there are a lot of nations that are led by men and are prospering. And then my conclusion is, so women can also lead. So that is neither here on that shows women can also lead. Out of those 5 examples I gave him, he only gave me one. Then I don't remember how the conversation ended, but we ended up again just he ended up again just calling some patriarch. He said that's why I don't know, the Quran says a man should marry at least 4. A man can marry up to 4 wives, but a woman no. When you're a Muslim, that's when I just knew Muslims, when you are a Muslim, I think they just view women as second class citizens. Even the women themselves, it gets even into the women themselves. That's why even in feminists, you can barely find feminists who are Muslims.
Wow. Indeed. The brainwashing has worked even for the people who are oppressed. They have bought.
Yeah, totally.
They have bought into it, into that ideology. Thank you so much, El Maestro. I remember that video. Oh, I see Ndeve's hand is up. Go ahead, Ndeve.
I wanted to bring because I don't know exactly where I can find the surah and the verse about witness, whereby the witness of the woman doesn't count for much. But I wanted to bring this verse. That is completely the Quran. 4. The surah is the 4, and the verse is 34. And the translation, I hope it's a good translation. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women because Allah has given the one more strength than the other. and because they support them from their means. Therefore, the Russia's women are devotedly obedient and guard in the absence, in the husband's absence, what Allah would have them guard. So those are the kind of just instructions being told. Okay, you are inferior. Therefore, in the absence of your, well, women do that in the absence of the spouse or the husband. But anyway, then there is, I think, this is the one about the witnesses. How many witnesses are necessary? Yes, it is Surah, second Surah, verse 282. And if there are not two men available, then a man and two women, such as you agree for witnesses, so that if one of them, that is two women, errs, the other can remind her. Muhammad also had a negative view of women in this context. Oh no, that's a narration by Al-Qur'an. So I think it is just a narrative by somebody. All women give alms, as I have seen that the majority of the dwellers of hell, of hellfire, were women. So that is that is somebody who went to hell and found that most of the dwellers there were women. So yeah, so you can just see right there that there is total bias, and it has carried on and on. And our sisters on that side have yet to get their voice and start not thinking, not being, well, if you are bred from childhood that's you are, you're useless, you're all that, you kind of start believing it, and then you get married maybe at a young age, and you are depending on somebody. You are depending one on your father, and then you don't have any independence here in between your father and your husband, and then you are handed over to your husband. And then if something happens to your husband, you have to marry the brother, or your son has got to be there to defend you and to guard you. And if you do not have a man to defend you, it's not a society that accepts that you can be independent. That you are just, your goose is fried. So, yeah, so I think you can just see the condition that cooks that kind of, that brings up that situation where a woman can find herself, even if she's a woman that wants some independence, you find that you just do not have that choice or that option. And thank you.
Never, maybe you can answer this question because it comes up under that topic of women. What about the women who say about the hijab, that is, and even maybe Stano can contribute because he brought out this point. They say that the hijab is freedom. The hijab is their choice. They want to wear a hijab. It's freedom. What would you say to that?
This is what I would say about the hijab, because I've been looking and listening to women, and the reason is not actually that the women want to wear it. The reason is that they don't get to tempt the men. So it is not the choice of the woman. It is so that the man is not tempted. And then that one is a rabbit hole, because a kid in diapers tempted, how did a kid in diapers who tempt somebody? I mean, in India, they don't dress very provocatively, but we know what exactly happens out there. And don't go telling me that even those women wearing hijabs don't get raped. That is just a pipe dream. It is not true. So I do not think that there is any independence in a hijab. It is more a rebellion of, oh, you are attacking my religion, you are attacking my culture. I will show you, I'm going to wear it and I'm going to defend it. So it is completely, it is completely, we had in Ontario, we had that issue a couple of years ago until, the politicians were told, don't get into that. There are people who came here running away from those situations. You can't make them be followed by the same thing that they are running away from. It's like you say you run away from a rapist, and then you find the shelter you are in, the person that raped you is there, or the person that wanted to murder you, and you go to a refugee camp, and you find the refugee camp is the whatever Hutu or Tutsi who was trying to kill you. So no, I think that is just a rebellion because you feel that your culture or your religion is being attacked when people attack the hijab. That's to me sounds like a reaction to, while all the time the reason for the hijab was because the man was being tempted seeing your beautiful hair. The man was being tempted seeing your ankles. Oh, those ankles must be absolutely very nice. The man was being tempted seeing the shape of a woman. So it is not about the woman, it's about the man. Thank you.
Aha, that is Ndeve's perspective on the hijab, and a common rebuttal by women themselves who say that the hijab is freedom. I don't know if Stano, you had something to say on the hijab.
I think on that, I will just say they may say it's their choice. Just the way if you ask a Muslim, why are you a Muslim? They will not say it's because you are born in the Islamic area, or somebody who is a Christian will not say it's because it's born in a Christianity area. They will just say it's my choice. I find Islamic is good, that is why I choose to be a Muslim. I find Christianity is good, so I choose to be a Christian. So for women who wear hijab, it's not their choice. It's the culture. They find people in those areas that you are born, or in the family that you are born, believing in those things. So they think it's their choice, but it's not their choice. It's according to what their culture is shaped. So there is no choice there. It's based on what you have, find your society believing or on doing. So thinking that you are choosing yourself, but you are not choosing. But for the religion, they put a something called dogma. So that, yes, you think that is how you should behave by wearing that or by behaving in a certain way, your society doing. But because some people may deny or may try to do opposite, they come up with a dogma by saying if you do opposite, there is a certain discipline. We will discipline you for certain for doing this against what we believe or what we find our society doing. That is why we find women who are obeying, they feel it's their choice, but those who try to reject, they are written either to be stoned or to be punished, and among other kind of punishment. That is why we find even those who think it's not their choice, they are trying to come up from that slavery. They cannot tell you they want to come up from slavery. They will tell you it's their choice because they fear their fellow Muslim not to hear they are not comfortable. So they may pretend to be comfortable. Yeah, that is what I can say. So I have a question about this also and discrimination against women. In Islamic, I heard, although it's not, I think it's not specific in Quran, although I think Quran mentioned little about men we don't get virgins. We don't get many virgins in heaven. So as a reward. So I don't know what is the reward for women there. And who are those women will be given as a gift to men? Yeah, just curious about that.
Aha. Nano is curious about what's in it for the ladies. For the ladies. When you die as a Muslim and go to paradise. If there's anybody who would be interested in answering that question, you can answer it as you respond to the next subtopic. But before we get to it, let me also give my contribution on this idea of it being the natural order. That's a rebuttal we hear from Muslims, that women are just naturally inferior. This is why the Quran puts them at a secondary position to the male. So, first of all, let me give more examples of some ways that Islam discriminates against women or oppresses women. Or they're not new examples, you've mentioned them, the main ones. But let me explain what the implications are for women. So that one on Quran, from Quran 434, the one that advocates for wife battery, where you're given a progression of acts. You're told as a husband that your wife is to obey you. If she doesn't obey you, then warn her, number one. Number two, deny her sex in the bed. And then number three, strike her. So that verse advocates for domestic violence. And what this means is that when women face domestic abuse from their spouses as Muslims, they have no recourse, especially if you live in an Islamic state or a society that adheres to Sharia law. They have no recourse because their holy text says so. Muslim apologists will try to downplay the striking. Some progressive ones will say that you can even use something as small as this pen. But as you can see, those are the kicks of a dying horse, or they're clutching at straws because they're trying to defend the indefensible. Their holy text is endorsing violence against a person you consider to be your partner. Yeah, so that is very problematic for women in terms of violence. Then the one that Ndeve pointed out, from Quran 282, which was about a woman requiring two witnesses when she's reporting a crime against a man, that also disadvantages women who have experienced some crimes, private crimes like rape, because rape often does not have witnesses. It's just your word against his. So it means that these women will not access justice. And because of that, you even find that they refrain from reporting rape cases. That's why you cannot trust rape statistics from Islamic countries, since those women can't get recourse according to Sharia law, according to their Quran. They didn't have the other witness. And this also shows that they infertilize women. They think of women as children, as less intelligent, that the man is superior, he just needs himself, he can be the witness. But for the woman, she needs to one word from a man is equivalent to two from women, and it just shows you how they demean women, how they perceive women as inferior, and it is very problematic. Of course, there's that aspect of the hijab, and this one can often be controversial because you find that it is the women themselves who defend this practice. But as Stano said, and as Debe said, if there are negative consequences for not wearing the hijab, then it is not a choice. They are usually in some strict countries like Iran and Afghanistan. In fact, Afghanistan have really taken it to the extreme, to the point that they're even supposed to cover their eyes. So in such countries, the repercussions are dire. They cause physical harm to those women. Either they can be stoned or they can be imprisoned. Their liberty is essentially taken from them directly. But in other countries, like even the UK, the UK has a high Muslim immigrant population. Nowadays, many Nordic countries like Sweden and Finland are receiving a lot of immigrants from the Middle East because they have a lot of wars going on in their country, so they have to run away. And you're finding that in those countries, it's illegal, obviously, to stone someone for not wearing the hijab. So they might not get physical sanctions, but there will be psychological and social consequences of not wearing the hijab, especially from your immediate family. You start going out without the hijab, they're like, you are not covering these days. You are not a good Muslim. They'll start to alienate you and to castigate you. So by default, you will be forced to comply. You have to continue wearing that hijab. So as long as there are negative consequences, whether they are implicit or explicit consequences, then it is not a choice. It is oppressive. And these women who are trying to change the narrative and say, oh, the hijab is a tool of feminism, it is not. It is actually taking away your right. And also, to me, the hijab and even that promise of paradise, the 72 virgins, everything is just tailored to men's sexuality. Even polygamy itself, polygamy is only allowed for men. They only think about men's sexual needs and men's sexual appetite. They disregard women's as if we don't have it. We do. That's the reason why some women cheat. We do. We have a sexual appetite just the way men have. But in Islam, they don't care about it. They don't cater to it. They only cater to the man's sexuality. So it just shows you how misogynistic and biased that religion is. I keep telling my niece, who, as I told you, her mother is a Muslim. But I told my niece, Islam is not a religion for women. It's just not. It was made by men for men. Essentially, that is it. And this one of that rebuttal that it is the natural order of things, that women are just not equipped to be leaders or to take care of themselves, that's a lie. It's a bald-faced lie. Women can lead, the way El Maestro gave that example, those examples of the female leaders. And it's not just in the political sphere. We have women everywhere. Principals in most schools are women. We have organizations, we have CEOs, we have PSAs, we have governors who are women, and they're doing okay. It's not that they are exceptional. They're just they make mistakes just the way men make mistakes. None of them are immutable. So they're looking at women with a black colored lens. a negative lens. So I think that's dishonest. They use nature. It's called biological determinism. They use biological determinism to advance their agenda when it is not what is empirically true, because we see women leading everywhere. And even this idea of equating masculinity to leadership, maybe what the world needs is more feminine traits in leadership. Because look at where the men have gotten us with all these wars that we are having, with all of the antagonism. Those masculine traits, maybe they're not our salvation. Maybe what our salvation needs is more cooperation and collaboration, which are stereotypically feminine traits. But as I said, it's a stereotype. I'm not saying that male leaders cannot be cooperative or collaborative, or that female leaders cannot be antagonistic. But let's consider that other option. And lastly, the reason why women are absent from leadership is because of the obstacles that come from childbearing and domestic duties and those cultural expectations that their place is in the kitchen, their place is in the home. It isn't outside the home, but they are capable. It's not natural. This is socially constructed. Great. So that is the second last. Now the last subtopic, the last rebuttal is Islamophobia. Islamophobia. We sometimes hear some Muslims talking about Islamophobia when we criticize Islam in general. When we bring out problematic issues from their faith, we talk about those violent verses in the Quran, we talk about the unscientific things in the Quran, and we will bring out any criticism against Islam. They say it is Islamophobia. Do you buy that response of Islamophobia? This is our last subtopic as we wind up. Please feel free to raise your hands. How would you respond to that rebuttal when a Muslim says, if you criticize us, it's Islamophobia? Please feel free to raise your hands. Good. I see El Maestro. Go ahead, El Maestro.
Okay, the first thing is there should be no religion or no concept that is beyond reproach. Either if it is Muslims, Christianity, I've never had anything like atheist phobia or Christian phobia. But if I can just say that the reason why there is Islamophobia but not Christian phobia or atheist phobia is because Muslims, you are afraid of being questioned because your religion has a lot of loopholes. You are afraid of being questioned or being criticized because your religion has a lot of loopholes. That's the only thing that's the only thing I can think. That's the only reasoning I can think of. If they bring out, I don't know, this terms Islamophobia because of criticizing their religion.
Aha. They have something to hide. They're afraid of something. Thank you, El Maestro. Great. I see both Deve and Morioki's hand are up. Even though Deve, you raised your hand first because Morioki was missing throughout the meeting, let's give him the first chance. And because he's usually brief, I think we can allow Morioki.
Okay, thanks, Dorcas. Yeah, what I'll say, I think they are not all terrorists. It's unfair to think that all Muslims are terrorists because some Muslims are against terrorism. Yeah, thanks.
So, Morioki,
yeah.
who is saying that all Muslims are terrorists?
It's happened so many times that like they are checked. I remember in some, it was in Kenya. I don't know what was it. I don't know. It was a bank. Then a Muslim woman was wearing a hijab. So the officer, the security officer, was really looking at her like in a suspicious way. He was looking at her like she shouldn't come in because she had a hijab. Us were okay, but that Muslim woman was really judging her, like looking at her in a strange way. So I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
So Morioki,
Yeah.
that's a case. To you, that's a case of Islamophobia.
Yes.
But now that's not what we were addressing. What we were addressing is their response to criticisms.
Yeah.
Criticisms against some things in their faith. Yeah. When we criticize some things in their faith, they call that Islamophobia. Is that accurate? Does that satisfy you? Do you think that is true?
Okay, I thought, okay, I don't know if I'm wrong. I thought terrorism is very highly linked with Islam. You compare with other religions, their faith is linked to the terrorism a lot. That's what I'm saying.
You're running away from. Okay, sawa. Thank you, Morioki. Yeah, and what I would say, Morioki, is it's not right to discriminate against somebody based on a stereotype, assuming that anybody who wears a hijab or has that Muslim garment is a terrorist is discriminatory. I agree. Debe?
Thank you, Dorcas. Muriuki, I'm going to say something about the hijab and security. Because you're working in a bank and you're wearing a mask, literally. So the security person can't tell whether you are a man or a woman. And that hijab, the security person can't tell what you might be having under that hijab. People are very creative. I think I wouldn't just walk into a bank without a mask. And if I can wear, and it has been done, by the way, that hijab has been used very creatively by people that want to do ill, and they've succeeded because you can't tell who it is and you can't tell what it is they're carrying under their garment. So the security person was not so wrong, and he decided that he had to deal between being seen to be discriminating and doing his job. I do not know which way, whether he decided, I'm going to err between stereotype and doing the right thing for the job. So that I'm going to leave that one there. As for Islamophobia or whatever other phobias, our first responsibility to ourselves is to keep ourselves safe. Life just wants to continue. That's why we run away from things that are harmful, because life wants to live. Because it's only people who are dead who don't run away from anything. But when you are alive, you want to continue living, and therefore, Islamophobia. Something has taught us that there is something there, yes, there is something there. So therefore, we question, we ask ourselves things. We ask ourselves, I can't see your face. Who exactly are you? I don't understand why you are doing this thing. Why are you doing this? So if I do that, I'm not discriminating. I am just asking questions to understand where I stand with you. And if I see something that doesn't make sense to me, like today, how we are discussing the things that don't make sense to us, the things that don't seem right to us, and we are asking ourselves, why? That is not Islamophobia. Children, you will feel very comfortable with your child when they say, why must I eat my dinner? Or why must I get dressed? Or why must I go to school? You should be very happy if your child asks you all these questions, because it means that this child is curious. This child is curious about the things around it. So Islam does not have any right to tell us not to ask. Christianity does not have any right to tell us not to ask. Why? Why not? They are in my neighborhood. I'm going to ask. You live in my country. I'm going to ask. I'm a taxpayer. You are a taxpayer. I'm going to ask you, what are the things? Why are you doing this thing? Because this thing affects me. As much as you might say I'm not a Muslim, but it affects me because we live together. We live on the same street. So therefore, it's not Islamophobia. I want to know why I'm going to be living with you, why I should not move from the street. Live with you. Thank you.
Okay, you brought out an interesting angle on security there. And I think it's food for thought, especially for Muriuki. Next is El Maestro.
Oh, I forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, okay. Then let me give my contribution as we think of our closing remarks. Islamophobia. We had this discussion. We actually dedicated an entire Zoom meeting to Islamophobia last year. I would urge you guys to go and check out our first channel, Atheist Hangout, and look for is criticizing Islam discriminatory. And the crux of the discussion actually was that it is not discriminatory to criticize any religion or any idea. It's not discriminatory. It is only discriminatory when you act in a prejudicial way towards those people. So, for example, in that instance of the one Muriuki was bringing out, if this person was just arrested for being Muslim, for wearing a hijab, if this person was arrested and taken in with no evidence that they are terrorists or anything of the sort, that would be discriminatory and that would be Islamophobia. Or if a person is applying for a job and they are Muslim, you're seeing them wearing the hijab and they're Muslim, you deny them a job because they are Muslims, that is Islamophobia. However, speaking against an idea, just criticizing Islam is not discriminatory. It is not Islamophobia. That is a necessary part of a healthy society. If we want a society in which we challenge and eradicate bad ideas, we have to be able to criticize them. Why don't we hear atheist phobia, Christian phobia, Buddhist phobia, Hindu phobia? Because those religions are open to criticism. They are not so insecure like Islam. Because Islam will threaten you with violence for criticizing you. If you are an apostate, if you have left the faith, or if you are an atheist like us, and then you start criticizing them, they can call that blasphemy. And some atheists have suffered tremendously because of that mentality of Islamophobia. And one example is Mubarak Bala from Nigeria. He's doing time. He's been sentenced to 24 years in prison because of saying negative things about Islam. And those negative things are true. You know, he was talking about all the immoral ideas, how slavery is sanctioned in the Quran, and it's still taking place in many predominantly Muslim countries. He was talking about all the things we have addressed on Facebook and his other social media platforms, and they went after him, and now he is going to waste away his years in jail. Simply because Islam makes a special claim for itself that it should be above reproach. So if anybody says anything negative about it, then they should be punished. No. All religions are fair game. All belief systems, all ideas are fair game, and they should be criticized because that's how society gets better. That's how we improve. That is actually a thought silencing tactic, and many of us atheists are dealing with that brand of being called Islamophobic. Richard Dawkins is called an Islamophobe. Sam Harris is called an Islamophobe, and all the four horsemen. Christopher Hitchens, when he was alive, it was said that he's an Islamophobe. No, he's not an Islamophobe. He's just criticizing an idea. He's not discriminating against Muslims. That's what I have to say on that point. So overall, guys, we are done. We're done with all the rebuttals. Overall, what do you have to say about these rebuttals? Now that we've looked at the common ones, the commonest ones in I'm seeing Juliana is saying Barack Bala was released. What? That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I have to check out that news. I didn't know.
Yes, he was. You know that human rights activist Leo somebody, he usually posts on
Leo
Global
Igwe.
Philosopher. Yes. He was being actually interviewed by one of the prominent atheists who have a YouTube channel. It's almost an hour, 2 hours long. Yeah, he was talking about it. It's about 2 weeks ago. Very, very interesting interview that he had on YouTube. And yes, if you check the news even today, yeah, Mubarak was finally released.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but he suffered. You're right. He's really suffered, but he was released.
My gosh. Yeah, that's what we have to deal with when we allow Muslims to claim a special place with regard to their faith, that it should be untouchable, it should be a sacred cow. Thank you for that information, Juliana. So guys, let's give our closing remarks on all these rebuttals that you are hearing. What do they tell you about the Islamic faith? Does it withstand scrutiny? Going by those rebuttals that we have addressed, those 5 rebuttals, does Islam offer satisfactory answers to disturbing questions? And then let's give our final remarks. Any other thing that you'd like to say as we wind up? Great, I see El Maestro's hand is up. Go ahead, El Maestro.
My take is that I wish there was a Muslim who was part of this discussion. At least it would have been more, at least more enlightening, and of just how how Islam is, because this religious people, they are usually absolutely shameless when it comes to defending their own religion. They are just shameless. Like this guy, this friend of mine who is a teacher here at Garrison, the way he defends Islam is ready even to be misogynistic and see nothing wrong in that. It's so sad the way religion brainwashes and brainwashes the mind of adults. It's so, I don't know. It needs to be studied how this religion enslaves the mind. So that said and done, as I told you, for me, I've lived with Muslims. I still have a lot of friends who are Muslims who are in Mombasa. And I also have like some 4 or 5 friends of mine who are once Christians, and they converted to Islam. So what I noticed about Muslims, okay, not so much to attack them, but I just don't know their morals. When it comes to morality, outside they might paint, I don't know, the way the Muslims, I don't know, they have, but when you live with Muslims sasa in the same plot, hey, those people are so disrespectful. I would dear like a child who is like 14, 15 years abusing their parent. I was like, what the hell is this? And not once and not twice, and not the same person. Multiple children, Muslim children. And it became like a norm. I was like, hey, what the hell is this I'm witnessing? Hey, in the Christianity, I know Christians wakikuwa watu wakubwa, they start to derail morally, but when they are still children, they really respect their parents. But Muslims, I ask myself, what the hell is this kind of things? Secondly, when and they are when you it comes to maybe interacting with them, with their fellow Christians, they are not bad. They are not bad, but now then, wenyewe kwa wenyewe, sometimes what I noticed when they are in interacting wenyewe kwa wenyewe, it's not what people think. Overall, about those rebuttals, somehow satisfactory, but I wish there was a Muslim here. I wish there was a Muslim here. I wish there was a Muslim here. We would have had at least a more enlightening discussion. That's it.
Thank you, El Maestro. Yes. Next time when we have a Muslim topic, an Islamic topic, let's invite our Muslim friends, if we have them, or if they are so inclined, so that we can have a balance in the discussion. As I said, I extended an invite to one Muslim apologist, but he didn't respond, probably because it was too late. It was today, and the meeting is today. Yeah, perhaps next time we'll try and make it more open. Great. Next is Morioki.
Okay, thanks, Lucas. Sorry, I had to come and leave. Something urgent came up. That's why I left. Okay. What I'll say is that for the hijab issue, I think you should be careful because some Muslim women really like it. Like even when they talk they're not being forced. You can see they really like it, and yeah, they don't mind putting a hijab. It's not being forced on them. So there we should be very careful about the hijab. Thanks.
Morioki, yes, there are some women who willingly wear the hijab, and there are some women who are coerced into it, who are compelled into it because their parents pressure them. It would be disingenuous of us as atheists not to recognize those ones who are pressured into it also.
I'm saying,
you can't say, Stano, okay,
Dorcas,
Stano, you wanted to say something, yes?
I think we answer Morioki last comment by saying that those who wear hijab, they may think it is their choice, but it's according to the culture they made. So I cannot say they have free will or it's their choice. It's only that they find themselves in a family that wear those things, so they think they enjoy, but it's not the case. The case is because they found that.
Stano, I saw one in Mombasa. She was saying she was married, so her face was covered. So she was saying that wanaume wako na fitina. So she remained covering her face. She spoke to a reporter ati wanaume wako na fitina. So once you marry, that's how you cover your face. It's like she remained saying covering her face.
Morioki. Okay, let's hear from others. Juliana. No, wait, no, I think it was Deve who raised first. Deve?
Okay, oh yeah, Juliana could have gone because I'm concluding. Muriuki, we had said we were born Christians and we did not know any different. I couldn't have told my parents when I was 1 month old, oh, you can't baptize me. So I was baptized and grew up from that time, from 1 month old to find myself, I'm being baptized or I'm having my first communion as a Catholic because that was where I was born. I was also born and taught Kikamba because that's where I was born. If I had been born in Muranga, I would be telling you at Terere, you know, Tuarie, you know. So it is where you are. It is where you are. Now you show me a woman here on my street, you know, or wearing a hijab who has never had the influence to wear. She'll be saying, why would I do that? I want to wear this and I want to wear this because she was born here, and that's where she was immersed in. That's the culture she was immersed in. So it's the same thing about the person but we said, so why the hijab? Why should the woman wear the hijab? So that the man does not get tempted. So that is the next step. But anyway, I will leave it in that. But these rebuttals, for me, of course, I would have loved to have somebody here to help us answer these questions. But because it is religion and it is about faith, I think even people who would want to say something might sometimes not dare say it openly because there are going to be some difficult things that they will have to say. Maybe some things that they wouldn't want other believers to hear them say in this group. But I know there are very many people that would like to answer these questions. Maybe not in the open because they don't have 1 foot out out of the religion. Because if you are going to answer some of these questions that we were asking, it could mean you have got 1 foot out of the religion, because they are very difficult things to explain or even to defend. Thank you. It was a very good conversation. We still missed one side, but I think we were open enough. We even read the Quran, so I think we tried our best. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, and we did the best with what we had. We have had ex-Muslims in the group, but they left. There was Rashid, there was Mohammed, and they exited the group. So it's unfortunate. At least they would have tried to give us that perspective. But it is what it is. In the future, if we can, let's extend those invites and see whether they will show up or not. Juliana, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It was a very enlightening conversation for me because my exposure to Islam is not the very deep one, it's just the surface. In fact, my first boyfriend was actually Muslim, but I don't think he was a practicing Islam because I know he smoked and he drank, but he was the most amazing person, my first boyfriend ever. And also going to school, when I went to one school where there was one Muslim person. She was coming from Nyeri. She was actually an Indian Muslim. She was coming from Nyeri. It was boarding school. And I recall my exposure then was, I understood they have to pray 5 times a day and they can't work on Fridays. So luckily, we had a very progressive sisters. She were Irish nuns who were at this boarding school. And so she was allowed not to do her chores on Friday. And she was allowed, and she didn't have to go to church on Sunday, whereas all of us were forced to go to church, me included. And so that's my exposure to Muslims. So to me, it's not until when we come to these terrorists and all these wars that now I'm so much embedded. And it's true, there's nothing like Islamophobia, and I wish people would stop giving that word press. It's like treating a special group of people with kid gloves or in a different way, and it's not fair to all the rest of the groups who are not treated that way. So talk about, again, so work. Most companies, I work now 2 companies now, even the one I work with, where there's actually a prayer room. Like there's a room set aside for employees who are Muslims to go and pray in there 5 times a day. So they're pretty well treated, quite well, I think, in most workplaces. However, I don't know if this news has reached there yet, but the province of Quebec, I think it was in the news last week. So in the province of Quebec, they said, if you are working for the province or the city or a public organization, like a civic organization, you are not allowed to wear any religious headdress, and that includes the hijab or I don't know what they'll do about the Sikhs, because the Sikhs have their turban. And so they passed that rule in Quebec. So if you want to work for, say, the government or municipal or something, you're not allowed to wear hijab at all. And so they passed that rule, and there is a group right now that wants to take them to court to fight against discrimination of religion. So we'll see where they go with that. But the province is quite adamant. Quebec used to be one of the most religious provinces way back when. And right now, I think they're probably the highest atheist province in Canada. Like the cuss word in Quebec, if you want to cuss somebody, you say tabernacle. That's like shit. You say tabernacle. That's how secular and unreligious they are. So I'm just wondering how this hijab rule will go through. So great conversation, and I hope people get to hear and watch this YouTube, because I think there's a lot of good information. And thank you for the moderators and all the people who had the facts and good quote. That was really enlightening for me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, for me, the more secular a country gets, the better in my book. So thank you, Juliana, for those remarks. Now, Moroki, I don't know whether your hand is still up from the previous time or you have something else to say.
Yeah. May I ask David a question?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. They say necessity is the mother of invention. So, as a critical thinker, do you think for the hijab and the covering of the face, when they cover their faces in the hijab, something made them do it? Do you think something happened at that time for idea to come? What do you think?
That's actually a very good question. But if you look back, you'll find that even in Europe, even only 100 years ago, women dressed very differently. Nuns covered themselves. And all this completely, it has nothing to do with the women. It is just so that men are not tempted. Yeah. Then we realized, then we learned that, oh, that is not the cure for women, for men's lust. It doesn't matter. Even if you are covered in a gunny bag, a man is, or a woman for that matter, you're going to react the way you're going to react. It's not because of it's not because of what you're just going to react. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. That hijab, there's a woman in that hijab reaction. So it really, I maybe it is cultural, but it is not because of the weather.
No,
definitely, it's not because of the weather.
And David, because personally, I find them very attractive. Some of these Muslim women, they're very attractive. So maybe something happened that time. Maybe it was, I don't know. They're very attractive to me.
You like the hijab? You like them in the hijab?
No, how they look. They're very pretty.
How
so
they
they're
look or how
attractive.
they dress. How they look. How they look or how they dress.
The skin color, even the skin color, they're so attractive. So maybe something happened for the idea to come, because they're very attractive, these Muslims.
Okay, what can you see them? Something?
Eh?
Specify what something happened.
Maybe those okay, see, I wasn't there, but as I think I see something for the idea to come.
What thing? Can you name what thing happened?
Let me explain.
Too much sex, too many babies that time. Too much sex, too many babies.
No, Muruki, do you know the reason why they wear hijab? There is a story in the Quran where I don't know I think it's also in the Old Testament, in the Bible, where I don't know some angels in heaven, they came, I don't know, down to earth, and they were attracted with they attracted to women, and then I don't know, they slept with the women. So the don't know, this Muslim say that since if a woman can attract, if an angel can attract a woman, what about now a mortal human being now? So this, I don't know, this woman, they should cover up so that to make to avoid attracting men. But even if they still cover themselves, these Islamic countries are still the places that the most rape occurs. The rape cases are increased in Europe the moment the Muslim immigrants migrated to Europe, and they are the countries for most of those rape cases. So yes, that was the reason why one of the Muslims told me that, but it still doesn't even make any difference, because there are still many rape cases in Islamic countries.
Also, Maestro, so that was the reason, eh? That's the reason you gave. That's the only reason.
That's the reason they gave me. They said if a woman can attract an angel, what about now men?
Okay, fine. Okay, I know that. That I didn't know. Okay, thanks. I didn't know that. I thought something happened back in the day for the idea to come.
Nothing,
that's what I always thought.
Yeah. No.
Okay, so okay, thanks.
Sawa. Thank you for that clarification, El Maestro. In fact, I saw a video talking about the history of the hijab, but I didn't watch it. So I'm glad that you had that background information. And to respond to Morioki, if it doesn't work, the remedy is to tame men's lust. That's their argument, that they don't want men to be tempted. But it doesn't work because women get raped still. So now we have two harms being done. Women are still getting raped, and their liberty is taken away. They have to hide themselves. You're demonizing women's bodies, while at the same time, you're not achieving that social good, which was that men will stop raping women. They still do it. There's still cheating that continues. There's still divorce that continues in those societies. So it's not working. They need to discard that policy. They need to stop demonizing women's bodies, and they need to teach men how to tame their lust, because that's where the problem is. How to tame their lust. It's possible in some countries. Rape cases are very low because those men understand consent. So they shouldn't be targeting the victims. They should be targeting the perpetrators, because that remedy doesn't work. The hijab doesn't work. Women still get raped. Bottom line. Now, let me give my closing remarks, as we call it, a wrap. I think overall, I echo everybody's sentiments. I wish we had the Muslims themselves to hear firsthand what they have to say on these rebuttals. But we just had to make belief. And these rebuttals, as I said, were informed by conversations that I had with Muslims and by online debates between Muslim apologists, and atheists or Muslim apologists and Christians. So these are some of the things they say. So even though we can't have them in our meeting, we can anticipate what they say going by what is available online. And what I have realized is, at the end of the day, these rebuttals are unsatisfactory. They are lame excuses, because these Muslims are found, they're finding themselves in a place where they have to defend the indefensible. They are defending child marriage. They are defending slavery. They are defending the killing of unbelievers. All those, we have quoted direct Quranic verses explicitly endorsing those beliefs. Most Muslims are decent human beings. Most Muslims don't adhere to those parts of the Quran or their faith. So given the fact that they have to excuse it, shows you that they are better than their faith. To become more moral, you have to forget what the Quran tells you. And this is not to absolve them also from the ones that act that way. Yes, most Muslims are not violent, or most Muslims are not even slaveholders. But we have many Muslims who are misogynistic. We have many Muslims who believe in unscientific ideas from their holy texts. So no one is immune. None of the Muslim believers are immune from the problems that we have been addressing. So overall, these rebuttals show me that Islam is not a religion worth following. It isn't. It is not. Now, in the event that some of you are still not confident about your knowledge of Islam, if you haven't done your research, because personally, as I told you, I listen to a lot of debates by Muslims, and I follow the apostate prophet, I follow the friendly ex-Muslim, I follow Muslim skeptic, I follow a lot of Muslims online. So at least I'm trying to educate myself about Islam. However, if you find yourself in a situation where you can't Oh, let me cough, please.
It's come again, Dorcas. The cough has come back. It had gone. What happened? It had gone. What's happened now? It had gone.
Inakuanga hivyo, inakuwa kwanza usiku. I've been suffering this whole week. I've been suffering all night. Anyway, I was saying that if you find yourself in a situation where you are confronted with a Muslim and you don't know Muslim information, Islamic material, you don't know the verses from the Quran, you can still use the arguments that we addressed some time back under the title, Debating Believers Without Their Holy Text. Go back to that video where we talked about the problem of evil in the world. Muslims still can't deal with that. They can't give a comprehensive answer on why there's evil in the world. We talked about bad design in the universe. The universe is just badly designed, or even the planet and humans are badly designed. Muslims still deal with that challenge and many other issues. And many other issues which we addressed on how to debate believers without using their holy text. So if you can have a firm grasp on that, you'll still be good even if you don't know Islam. So guys, please continue contributing. Remember, we just have one day, we just have tomorrow to finalize for our video shoot. And for those of you who can make it, please come. We are going to have a good time. We're going to cook. We're going to interact. That's like our quote unquote church for the month. So see you guys on Sunday. And I wish you a lovely rest of the night, evening, or morning, depending on where you are.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.